Grateful for that, for sure. Thanks, Mike. I have never really been very good at crafting catchy and intriguing titles. And today I must apologize for really one of the lamest titles ever. While I knew I wanted to talk about generosity this morning, I just couldn't seem to get my head around, in this month dedicated to nurturing gratitude, how to weave those two things together. And ultimately, I decided to try to sort it out in real time with you, leaving me with a rather lame working title, Grateful, Generous, or Both and. Because while the connection between generosity and gratitude is a profound one, I think their deeply intertwined relationship can be one that's difficult to grok. There's a story told by Reverend Janet Parsons about how this particular conundrum recently manifested itself within our tradition. A couple of years ago, the Unitarian Universalist Association made some significant changes to our statement of purpose, switching from a statement of 7 principles to an embrace of 7 core values with love at the center, illustrated as such. And at the General Assembly in 2023, a year before the final vote, the proposed new value statement was presented by the Article 2 Study Commission, and the inclusion of generosity as a value surprised some, which led a group of delegates to propose amending that value to gratitude instead. Gratitude, those people felt, is such an important spiritual practice that it should be considered to be of higher value than generosity. Therefore, rather than generosity, gratitude should be named as one of Unitarian Universalism's core values. Well, the vice chair of the commission, the Reverend Cheryl M. Walker, spoke to that, noting that the commission had talked a great deal about gratitude, but that it had come to them that the ultimate goal of gratitude is generosity. In other words, they felt that generosity was a higher value than gratitude. Reverend Walker went on to say that if we are merely grateful for what we have and are not in turn generous with our time and our love in our community, then our gratitude is simply an exercise in individualism. Perhaps gratitude then is better understood as something that calls upon us to be generous, to use our blessings to serve the world. Well, in the end, generosity won out, and it is now part of our constellation of values. Well, here's something that might be seen as the opposing view. Way back in 2006, Reverend Dr. Galen Gingrich, then Senior Minister at All Souls Unitarian in New York City, gave a sermon on gratitude in which he posited that gratitude should be claimed as the heart of Unitarian Universalism, seeming to say that gratitude is the higher value than generosity. Big picture, Gingrich said that religion, what we might rename as the practice of meaning-making, is made up of 2 human impulses. The first is the sense of awe and a sense of obligation. Interestingly, I just heard in that reading, Robin Wall Kimmerer named those things as happiness and accountability, awe and a sense of obligation. When we practice gratitude, Gingrich said that we're reminded of the gifts and the grandeur of life, and of how utterly dependent we are on everything around us. And as we notice that dependence, we then can understand our obligation to reciprocate. So gratitude fosters an environment in which, as we are nurtured, we nurture the world in return. So which is it, gratitude or generosity? Which is the higher value? Which comes first? Remember that flower of values that was up on the screen a few minutes ago? Each of those values, love, justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, individualism, or interdependence, love, justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity, each of them come with a short statement of meaning and commitment. And the generosity value statement says, we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, our presence, and our resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. So, then to be generous involves cultivating a spirit of gratitude. And if we're generous, we're able to connect in relationships of this interdependence and mutuality, relationships that inspire gratitude. Maybe it's a chicken and egg thing. Generosity breeds gratitude, gratitude breeds generosity. Which way is it? Now, in my experience, which I don't assume to be universal, I have sometimes felt that when asked to give or to be generous, I seem to arrive at a crossroads. Too often, I fear that my response, my decision about which way to go in that moment is just a little stingy. Okay, I know I should give, but do I have enough? Do I have the money and the time and energy that's needed? And besides, what I have to give doesn't really matter that much. I don't really have that much. I'd love to respond differently, to make a different choice, but sometimes I just don't. And this stinginess, I believe, is one of the byproducts of toxic capitalism, a system in which we are taught to take without giving in return, to use resources without replenishing them, to take more than we need. And this stinginess, I think, may be seated in our nation's founding principles. Now, I know that we are working hard right now to preserve and reclaim many of those principles, and that work is so critical. But the founding principles that focus on the freedom of the individual above accountability to others fosters this individualism and tempts us to disregard the reality that we do utterly depend on the people and the world around us. Instead, we're taught to think that we're the masters of our own destiny, that everything we have earned, that we have a right to win, which leads to competition and the desire to have more and more and more, and to grab and to cling. This is not who I want to be. Yet while I resent these impulses that capitalism has instilled in me, I still can be stingy. So why is that? Because really, 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 I have so much. I have everything I need. Everything I need is right here. My teacher, Sally Gico Tisdale, tells that in her experience, when as a young woman she had almost nothing, she celebrated any gift she received with gratitude. And since she was constantly aware of the gifts she received, she believes that that made her much more likely to act in the same way, to give what she had freely. But now she writes, she has a house and a car and a savings account, and she doesn't always feel so generous. Sometimes she gives reluctantly, maybe because she has more things to lose. And she writes, gratitude, the simple and profound feeling of being thankful, is the foundation of all generosity. I'm generous when I believe that right now, right here, in this form and this place, I am myself being given what I need. Generosity requires that we relinquish something, and this is impossible if we are not glad for what we have. Otherwise, the giving hand closes into a fist and won't let go, unquote. That's deep, I think. We're unable to let go unless and until we are grateful for what we have. So it has nothing to do with what we have or how much we have of it, but rather about feeling grateful for it. So, which is it? If Reverend Walker is right, we should be practicing gratitude more as an antidote for individualism so that we can live into open-handed generosity. If Reverend Gingrich is right, practicing generosity more would feed our awareness of how much we are nurtured by the world, allowing us to lean into gratitude. If Tisdale is right, well, if we're not grateful, generosity simply doesn't happen. So let's return to the serviceberry and Robin Wall Kimmerer. Her new little book called The Serviceberry, It's a wonderful little read. It's all about abundance and reciprocity. And even though the reading that Sandy shared came from Emergence Magazine, that essay is also in this book. All flourishing is mutual, she says, and that this is a lesson that the natural world teaches us. All flourishing is mutual. Kimmerer talks of the gift economy, an economy whose currency is gratitude and reciprocity, and which is defined as a system of distribution of goods and services that meets the needs of the community. Imagine that. A gift economy that meets the needs of the community, a system that prioritizes relationships and reciprocity in the interest of collective thriving. Collective thriving, can we just imagine it? Kimmerer writes, gratitude and reciprocity have the remarkable property of multiplying with every exchange. Their energy, concentrating as they pass from hand to hand, is a truly renewable resource. I accept the gift from the bush, and then I spread that gift with a dish of berries to my neighbors, who makes a pie to share with his friend who feels so wealthy in food and friendship that he volunteers at the food pantry. You know how it goes, unquote. But do we know how it goes? Can we trust our mutual flourishing enough to open our hands in generosity? Well, what if the practice of gratitude is a way to counteract hyperconsumption? What if we were to truly lean into a gift economy enough to trust that there is sufficient to meet our needs? And what if that could alleviate that stingy clinging we sometimes feel? I feel like we could arrive at that intersection where we're being asked to be generous and there feel gratitude and simply want to reciprocate in every way that we can. Gratitude for having enough, gratitude for existing in a system of reciprocity, gratitude for our ability to share. And right there and then, to be able to open our hand in every direction, to participate in that mutual flourishing, to practice restoration and return, to practice taking only what we need. All of which, by the way, would also address climate catastrophe and the loss of biodiversity. Kimmerer suggests that if our first response is gratitude, then our second will be reciprocity, to give a gift in return, and that's generosity. We offer a song of thanks. We offer some direct service, whether that be washing dishes or watering the garden. We make a donation so that others might receive gifts. We reduce our carbon footprint or advocate for the preservation of the land. Now, I know that, unfortunately, we do not yet exist in a gift economy, not fully. Far too many do not receive enough to flourish. There's just so much work to do. And in these difficult and overwhelming times, I think it's really hard to know what to do. So here's the thing. No matter what, we can still live our values. We can still practice gratitude and reciprocity in so many ways, small and mighty and meaningful ways. Generosity and gratitude obviously do not need to compete, not any more than we need to compete. They don't need a catchy title. They're in and of themselves a mutually replenishing system, and to rank them is a false dichotomy because neither takes precedent. Both are needed, they feed each other. Both are life-changing practices, and each needs the other in order to flourish. So may we cultivate and nourish them, because values don't always come automatically. They have to be tended. And a great reason for being in a community such as this is that it helps us to do just that, to grow our gratitude, to grow our generosity. And as we walk together trusting in the power of love and the potential of humanity, We come together in community to be more conscious and intentional about the values we are striving to live. That's ethical education. As is often quoted in closing here in the words of Howard Thurman, the world needs more people who have come alive. And really, what better way to describe being alive than being part of a mutually flourishing system? So please, go out and flourish, that you may pass it along to others in gratitude and in generosity. I am grateful for you. May it ever be so.